Most older citizens engage in these 7 behaviors, which are detrimental to their personal development and relationships. Have you ever become aware of a seemingly insignificant action to which you may be contributing to the alienation of others? As we become older, we acquire knowledge, experience, and frequently a more profound understanding of what truly matters. But certain behaviors that we have developed over the course of our lives can subtly undermine our relationships, our dignity, and our pleasure, because they do not wish to cause us any offense. These are the things that no one shares with us. However, because of this silence, these routines continue to exist for years, or even decades. The purpose of this movie is not to stigmatize you but rather to empower you by shedding a light that is both compassionate and honest on such behaviors. Let's have a look at 7 behaviors that the majority of older citizens engage in without even being aware of it. They are not nasty or boisterous in any way. In point of fact, many begin with the best of intentions. On the other hand, if they are not addressed, they can become obstacles to connection and growth. If you have ever pondered the reasons behind why certain discussions do not go the way you had hoped or why certain individuals appear to withdraw from the conversation, these habits could be a contributing factor. The first step toward bringing about a change in that is to acknowledge them. Continue to be with us until the very end, because you will not only learn how to recognize these behaviors, but you will also learn how to replace them with straightforward adjustments that will assist you in connecting with others more, feeling lighter, and carrying yourself with the grace and confidence that you have earned. It is possible that you identify some of them in yourself. That is all right. We are not here to pass judgment, rather, we are here to grow. It's time to get started. The habit of continually comparing everything to the past is the first thing to be acknowledged. One can find some solace in the memories of the past. The song had a more pleasing sound. Prices made perfect sense. Moreover, it is only natural to look back with love when you have lived during the decade that was filled with so much success and prosperity. However, this is when things start to become problematic. As soon as you begin to compare every moment of the present to how it used to be, the people around you will no longer feel heard, and you will begin to sound like you are trapped. It is a pattern that develops gradually over time. When you hear someone speak about a new way of doing something, you immediately begin to think, well, back in my day, that would have never worked in the 1960s. This happens before you ever realize what you are saying. It is possible that you intend for it to be a point of contemplation or wisdom. Nonetheless, it frequently ends up being dismissed. This conveys the idea that the present is perpetually falling short of expectations in some way. Additionally, when it becomes the predominant tone of the majority of interactions, people begin to tune out. Those who are younger, in particular, may get the impression that they are being judged merely because they are living in a different era. Possibly because they do not want to hear how it does not live up to their expectations. They will stop bringing up the things that they are thrilled about. In addition, your contemporaries, including people who have the same experiences as you, could become irritated by hearing the same refrains repeated over and over again. Romanticizing the past can offer comfort, but when it is used as a permanent standard, it creates a wall between you and the people in front of you. This is because romanticizing the past does not make room for what is still to come. Let's take George, a former school administrator who is now 79 years old. His grandson decided to pay him a visit and began demonstrating a brand new video editing tool that he was quite pleased with. When George was your age, we didn't waste time on stuff like that, so his first inclination was to say something along those lines. However, he was denied by something. Instead, he suggested that you demonstrate to me how it operates. They were laughing and editing an old family movie together an hour later. Bridging two eras via curiosity rather than comparison instead of comparing themselves to one another. Although the past has had an impact on you, it should not have any bearing on how you approach the present. There is still life taking place at this very moment. There are certain stories that are still being written, ideas that are being born, and moments that are worth embracing. Meet people where they are. Rather of bringing every conversation back to where you were, you keep the relationship alive and expanding. This is because you are meeting people where they are. Despite this, it is still possible to honor your memories without using them to disregard the reality of another person. The expression, "That's interesting. Tell me more," goes a great deal further than we had ever been able to communicate it. To tell you the truth, every generation, including yours and theirs, has its own set of challenges and its own set of strengths. Let your feelings of nostalgia serve as a bridge rather than a barrier. It is not meant to stifle connection but rather to stimulate stories. People will feel as though they are invited into your experience rather than when they are compared to it when you do this. In the second place, the practice of continuously discussing matters pertaining to health. In the beginning, there is a little remark. It is totally natural to mention things like a new prescription, a visit to the doctor, and the fact that you are acting up again, especially when you are sharing updates with someone who is close to you, for example. However, over the course of time, some individuals, without even being aware of it, find themselves in a situation in which practically every conversation centers on a single topic. Namely, what is hurting, what is broken, and what is wrong. This is the issue at hand. When you talk about your health on a regular basis, especially in casual interactions, it has the potential to unintentionally make other people feel uncomfortable, stressed, or even helpless. It is possible that they care sincerely, but they are not always able to respond appropriately. When they believe they are unable to assist, they may gradually begin to separate themselves from the situation, not out of a malicious intent but rather due to emotional tiredness. Not only is it essential to be truthful about the challenges you are facing, but it is also essential to conduct an honest assessment of yourself. Is this something that I should reveal to others? Or is it just something that I have been accustomed to repeating? The act of expressing one's grief is distinct from the act of identifying with their suffering. If your identity becomes overly dependent on the illnesses or symptoms you are experiencing, it has the potential to influence how other people perceive you as well as how you perceive yourself. Despite the pain, you are more than that. More than a list of symptoms. You are more than that. Furthermore, the people who care about you want to see you, not just the list of things that are wrong with you. It is important to keep in mind that the only people who can truly connect with one another are those that share tales, laugh together, and are curious about one another. Without a doubt, your health is important. Your difficulties are, without a doubt, quite real. On the other hand, when those difficulties take over every connection, the room for happiness and lightness becomes smaller. Imagine Alice, who is 80 years old and still as smart as she was when she was younger. After a while, she made a joke about how my knees speak louder than I do these days. One afternoon, however, after yet another lunch with her daughter, she came to the realization that she had reached a low point. It is important to not forget that she had not inquired about her daughter's life in any way. When it came to her digestion and arthritis, everything had centered around them. Despite the fact that it was ongoing, it was not purposeful. It was only after she had checked in with other people that she made a change that she continued to share in a subtle manner. The warmth of her interactions increased. She, too, experienced a sense of lightness. The problem is not that you are sharing your troubles. When that becomes the only lens you view through, you have reached that point. It is your right to be perceived not only as someone who is managing suffering, but also as someone who possesses wisdom, humor, ideas, and goals that are still in the process of developing. Please remember to pause for a second the next time you are having a chat. Inquire about the opposite individual. Talk about a memory. In addition to your own aches, please share a thought about the wider world. Your health should be a component of your story, but it should not be the entire book. I would appreciate it if you could use the second comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Let's proceed with our plans now. The third habit is the tendency to say things like, "I already know." In conversations, particularly those that span decades, there is a moment that occurs that puts an end to everything before it has really begun. Someone starts to contribute something, whether it be a tale, a statistic, or a lesson, and before they can continue, the senior listener says, "Oh, I already know that." Innocent, and perhaps even true, it appears to be, because you have lived a long life and amassed a great deal of knowledge. It is possible that a significant portion of what other people say will sound familiar to you. But the harsh reality is as follows. A term that I am already familiar with is a conversation killer in a silent way. In addition, it is a pattern that drives people away, particularly younger people who may already be hesitant about establishing a connection with an older person. Whatever it is that you say, what people hear is that there is no room for your voice in this situation. The result is that individuals get the impression that their ideas, experiences, and narratives are not valuable, and eventually, they give up attempting to do it. They no longer share. This is not because they do not love you, rather, it is because they feel that they have been disregarded. Even if that was not your intention, they either walk on eggshells or completely withdraw from you. It's simple to get into this pattern without intending any harm to be done. In order to demonstrate that you are still mentally active and that you have not lost your edge, you want to demonstrate that you are sharp. However, the truth is that the most intelligent people are those that maintain their curiosity and create space rather than simply making assertions. Consider the act of conversing as a dance rather than a didactic lecture. Additionally, the person in front of you is providing you with the opportunity to listen to the song through their voice, even if you have heard it previously. Additionally, there are occasions when the connection that is being supplied is more important than the information that is being transferred. Sam, a retired firefighter who is 76 years old, is one example. One time, his grandson shared with him an enthusiastic account of a history lesson. He had just learned something that Sam was very familiar with. Sam leaned in and asked, "Tell me what you learned," rather than dismissing it as unimportant on his own. Through the use of that single line, they were able to have a conversation that lasted for an hour and strengthened their connection in a way that no correction could ever accomplish. It is not necessary for you to act as though you are unaware of something. Nonetheless, you can say that it is intriguing. In any case, what prompted you to think of that instead? Connection is encouraged by it. It is evidence that what is important is not simply what you know but also the people that you are listening to. In the end, no one ever experienced a feeling of love when they were told that they were wrong to talk. Whenever they are heard, when their words are received by a heart that is open, rather than merely a head that is full, they experience a sense of love. 4. The practice of being uninterested in novel concepts or approaches to technology. We are all familiar with the jokes that elderly people are incapable of using cell phones, dislike change, and believe that the world is moving at an excessively rapid pace. However, the reality is that those are not facts, rather, they are generalizations. Furthermore, the more we buy into them, the more we begin to behave in accordance with them. It is at this point that the practice of ignoring fresh ideas or technological advancements becomes a silent trap. In most cases, it starts off quiet, with someone mentioning a new phone function, a self-checkout system at the grocery store, or an app that is novel to them. After a moment, the thought occurs to me, "I don't need that. That stuff is for children. Without it, I have been able to function perfectly well." On the surface, it appears to be confidence, yet, beneath the surface, it is frequently a protection mechanism against the sensation of being lost or left behind. It is not a sign of weakness to be ignorant of how something operates. The problem is that when we turn that discomfort into rejection, we do two things. We stop growing, and we cut ourselves off from the people around us, particularly the younger ones who use such tools as part of their everyday lives. Imagine you are at a family meal where everyone is laughing over something that was discussed in a group chat. But you are not participating because you find group chats to be too confusing. Or imagine that a friend sends you a link to register for an event. But you choose to ignore it because you don't get involved in activities that take place online. There is a slight break in connection that occurs each time you choose to opt out. When you constantly respond to new experiences with resistance rather than curiosity, people will cease wanting to involve you in their activities. This does not mean that you have to adore everything that is coming your way. It is not because they do not care, rather, it is because they get the impression that you have already chosen to remain absent. Also, there is something more profound at play when you cease acquiring new knowledge. The neuroplasticity of the brain, which is one of the most potent components of the brain, is no longer reinforced. When it comes to maintaining sharper cognitive function, better moods, and more meaningful social lives, studies have shown that older persons who remain open to learning new skills, even simple ones, seem to have a tendency to experience these benefits. Take for example Linda, who, prior to receiving a tablet from her granddaughter, had never played with one before. She is 72 years old. Initially, she laughed it off. In what way would I put this to use? On the other hand, she gave it a shot. Currently, she uses it to read the newspaper every morning, engage in video conversations with friends located in different parts of the country, and even view older films that have subtitles. She added that I didn't believe I required it, but I didn't realize how much more connected I could feel until she shared her thoughts. The secret is in being an expert in technology. It is about maintaining an open mind and asserting, "Show me," rather than saying, "I am too old for that." When you look at every new thing, you should not consider it a danger to your way of life but rather something that has the potential to improve it. This tendency to dismiss novel concepts is not limited to the realm of electronic devices. The mentality is the key. The ability to maintain flexibility and the determination to continue expanding one's world rather than contracting it are both essential. Because, the fact of the matter is, the more mature we get, the more deliberate we need to be about our development. Now, it is no longer something that occurs by chance. The decision to do so is made. In addition, one of the most obvious indications of emotional maturity is the decision to prioritize inquiry over judgment. The people around you, particularly the younger ones, will understand that you are not only wise but also alert as a result of this observation. I would appreciate it if you could use the fourth comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Let's proceed with our plans now. Fifth, the pattern of excessively sharing information. Disclosing private information to the unknown. There is a threshold that must be crossed between being open and being overpowering. Additionally, as we get older, that line may gradually begin to blur. While waiting in line at the drugstore or while sitting next to a new person at a religious function, you happen to meet someone. In the period of only a few minutes, you have divulged your whole medical history, 3 family fights, and the complete tale of your neighbor's recent divorce. All of this has occurred before you even realize what you are hearing. Being friendly carries no negative connotations at this point. Many elderly people were raised during a period of time when it was common practice to engage in conversation with people they did not know. The purpose was to foster community and interact with others. However, what is sometimes overlooked is the fact that both the times and the societal conventions have shifted. Furthermore, what was once perceived as a chat between neighbors can now be perceived as happening too soon and too much. Oversharing is something that typically occurs when we are looking for connection. When feelings of isolation begin to take hold of us or when we haven't had a meaningful conversation in a while, we occasionally allow ourselves to let everything out in the moment that someone is willing to listen. Nevertheless, here is the harsh reality. When someone dumps their emotions on another person, they frequently leave them feeling caught off guard or even uncomfortable, particularly in the event that the relationship is not yet developed to the point where it can support such a weight. To say that your stories are not important would be an understatement. The difference lies in the manner in which you share them as well as the timing of your sharing. For example, Tom, who is 74 years old, started a conversation with a younger man while they were both at the gym. Tom had shared information concerning a recent surgery within 10 minutes, including the fact that he no longer communicates with one of his sons and that he had experienced loneliness on each of his 3 most recent birthdays. Although the young man listened with courtesy, he never went back to the conversation that was taking place. Tom had no intention of driving anyone away from him. In point of fact, he was attempting to captivate someone's attention. Unfortunately, the imbalance was too severe and too rapid. Time is necessary for a healthy connection. Equilibrium is required. One of the most important interpersonal skills that can be practiced at any age is the ability to recognize when it is appropriate to hold back a little bit. In order to avoid being secretive, it is important to show respect for the space and trust that relationships require in order to develop. Instead of rushing headfirst into your most difficult difficulties or your private life, begin with something manageable. Put out a question, a light-hearted thing to share. Give the other individual the opportunity to open up as well. It is by this method that you can construct a rhythm of communication rather than a monologue. It is not necessary for you to become cautious or pretended because of this. The exact opposite is true. When you acquire the skill of sharing with consideration and purpose, the stories you tell achieve a deeper level of significance, not because they are compelled to do so, but rather because they are truly interested in what is being said. People want to listen. Sharing too much information is not simply about what you say. Timing, context, and care are all equally important. You are demonstrating emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and social grace when you appreciate such things. On the other hand, you will discover that a greater number of individuals are prepared to open up to you as well. There is a sixth habit, which is the tendency to dominate talks with lengthy stories. The art of storytelling is one of the wonderful skills that comes with getting older. In your life, you have experienced things that other people have only read about. You are the one who has witnessed the transformation of the world. It is also possible that sharing those memories can be an effective approach to teach, inspire, or simply connect with others. Storytelling, on the other hand, transforms into something altogether different when it becomes the dominant topic of discourse. A pattern that causes other people to feel insignificant, silenced, or simply exhausted. When you get into this habit, it is simple to forget about it. Even if you are in the middle of a conversation, anything that someone says brings back a memory for you. You start giving a speech. Afterwards, a different narrative comes along. Also, there is another. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes have gone by, and nobody else has said a single one of their words. The smiles are courteous and courteous. The head nods out of habit. However, there has been a subtle shift in the energy that is present in the room. The fact of the matter is that tales that are lengthy and continuous, particularly when they are told frequently, can tire people down, not because your experiences aren't interesting, but for another reason. Rather than listening to lectures, people connect with one another through exchange. As soon as one individual takes control of the airspace, even if they are doing so with the greatest of intentions, the other individuals begin to feel more like spectators than participants. You might not even be aware that it is taking place. You are, after all, merely sharing what is a natural part of your life. Nevertheless, it is not considered disrespectful for people to avoid making eye contact, to peek at their phones, or to attempt to change the subject of conversation. It appears that they are attempting to rejoin the conversation. In gatherings of people of varying ages, this is especially true. There is a common reluctance among younger people to directly stop or guide an older adult. They do not speak their minds out of respect, but on the inside, they are checking out. Over the course of time, This results in a decrease in the number of invites, calls, and visits. It is not because they do not love you, rather, it is because they believe they are unable to properly express themselves. Consider the case of Barbara, who was 78 years old and enjoyed sharing memories from her time spent working as a nurse. In the beginning, her family and friends were really excited to hear them. On the other hand, they ultimately started to dread parties in which Barbara would hold court for an hour without pausing for a moment. Her daughter whispered to her mother in a soft voice, "Mom, I love your stories, but I miss talking with you. Not just listening to you and listening to you." Something changed at that very time. Not once did Barbara cease regaling us with tales. Additionally, she has recently begun to ask more questions. After then, the conversations that took place were more vibrant, more mutual, and more detailed. Sharing is not the solution to the problem. One must acquire the skill of listening between the lines. Keep an eye out for body language. Be aware of the moment when another person wants to join in. In addition, when you do tell a story, make sure to keep it brief. Allow others the opportunity to respond, to offer their own opinions, and to feel involved in the conversation. It is important to have the ability to know when to talk. But it is even more important to know when to pause. Conversation can be compared to music. The beauty of it lies not just in the notes themselves, but also in the gaps that exist between them. And as you make room for others, they will come forward, not because they are obligated to do so, but because they finally feel like they are invited. I would appreciate it if you could use the 6th comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Let's proceed with our plans now. 7th, the act of making snap judgments on other people based on their outward appearance or the decisions they make. It is such a delicate response that the majority of individuals don't even realize they are engaging in it. Someone walks by with hair that is a shockingly vivid color. A young man with tattoos running down his arms is in front of you. An individual who is in her 50s claimed that she has recently begun dating once more. And before you even realize it, an idea, a label, a judgment, or an opinion that is not spoken comes into being. It can be expressed through a momentary gaze, a remark, or a sigh. Exactly like that, a wall appeared out of nowhere. One of the most isolating tendencies that we keep with us as we get older is the custom of making snap judgments about other people based on how they appear, how they live, or how they think. In many cases, it starts from a position of pride and tradition, with the intention of clinging to the principles and ideals that we were raised with. If we are not careful, however, it will eventually turn into criticism. Over time, it causes individuals to withdraw from us. Not because they do not care about us, but rather because they have the impression that they are not seen or accepted. Whether it be fashion, lifestyle, or political ideas, it is not only about those things. When we make the assumption that being older gives us the authority to decide who is right, who is wrong, and who belongs, we are sending a message that is important to consider. What is the challenging aspect? We judge a lot of people. And a lot of those people are the same people we want to connect with. Our sons and daughters, our neighbors, and our grandchildren. Nevertheless, judgment is a barrier to the growth of connection. People have the ability to detect when they are being measured in silence. In addition, the majority of the time, they will opt to retreat rather than defend themselves. Consider the case of Richard, an 81-year-old widower who had the impression that his granddaughter was moving away from him. When they did chat, she appeared reserved and she visited quite infrequently. She hardly ever called. When she finally got around to telling him, "Grandpa, every time I come over, you make a comment about my clothes or how I live." She said something in the afternoon. "When I'm around you, I don't feel comfortable being myself." Richard was transformed by that moment. In no way did he argue. He was attentive. Furthermore, for the first time in a number of years, their subsequent encounter was filled with laughing rather than anxiety. Everything is different when we get rid of judgment and replace it with curiosity. The question that should be asked is, why would they do that? Consider inquiring. What is their story? Consider what it is that they might be trying to educate you rather than declaring that they are wrong. Mostly due to the fact that every single person you come across has traveled a path that you have not. Moreover, knowledge does not necessarily dress in a suit or live the same way that you did. It is not necessary to agree with every decision in order to demonstrate kindness. It is not necessary to have knowledge of every lifestyle in order to provide warmth. And when you let go of the desire to evaluate, you open the door to connection. Connection that is true, surprising, and frequently beautiful. It is important to keep in mind that getting older does not make your voice weaker. Having said that, it does imply that your voice carries more weight. What you say and the manner in which you say it stays with people. Let that weight be something that helps others to rise above their circumstances, rather than something that brings them down. Respect does not go in only one direction. We do not merely anticipate it, rather, we provide it. We make room for relationships that are secure, joyous, and genuine when we lead with openness, grace, and the humility to observe others without hurrying to categorize them. This is how we create space for partnerships. Lastly, some thoughts. Please pause for a moment of peaceful reflection as we get to the end of this video. Which of these routines did you become familiar with? Which one caused you to pause and think, this is something that I might be doing more often than I realize? It is not about assigning blame. There is also no room for shame in this. Awareness is the key, as is the kind of self-awareness that can only be developed through the passage of time, introspection, and a little bit of bravery. It is not true that you are a bad person because of that. To tell you the truth, the majority of them began with good intentions, a desire to connect with others, to be heard, and to maintain a connection to what you have known. Here, however, is the most wonderful section. Change is brought about by decision, and awareness brings about choice. You have the ability to influence how other people perceive you, whether it is through the use of a more gentle tone, pausing before you share, or asking one more question rather than delivering one more opinion. Due to the fact that growth does not cease at the age of 40, 60, or even 80, this power is one of the most wonderful blessings that comes with becoming older. Grace, relational intelligence, and emotional development are all things that can be pursued throughout one's entire life. Not only do you enhance your relationships by recognizing these subtle habits, acknowledging them, and making adjustments to them, but you also recapture your influence that you had previously lost. You demonstrate to others that getting older does not entail becoming frozen in place. In other words, it implies have the humility and strength to continue developing. Therefore, as you go about your week, give this a shot. Choose just one of the routines that we discussed today and make it a point to observe yourself in the present now. Don't be upset with yourself. Simply pay attention, take a deep breath, and select an alternative instead. Patterns are rewritten when little actions are repeated over and over again. It makes room for that. And maybe most importantly, it conveys to the people in your life that I care about you and myself enough to allow us to develop. We appreciate you being here with us today. It would be wonderful if you could get in touch with us. Please leave a comment below and tell us about one item you discovered today and how you intend to put it to use in your life right now. We place a high value on your opinions, so please do not be reluctant to share them with us. Our inspiration and encouragement are greatly increased as a result of reading your remarks. I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it to be informative and enjoyable. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. We appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we hope to see you in the future video.